Okay, it's 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. We are recording today's session so that we can share it later with others. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time today to join us. This is the first time I've done anything like this, a webinar. So looking forward to it and excited to share some of our tips and tools and key learnings from some of the things we've been doing recently. So for those of you who don't know, our motto is partnership over presentation. And for some of you who've actually been to our office, you know that we have a graffiti wall, and this is actually trademarked. What we talk about is the fact that we are truly partners. We roll up our sleeves and try to help identify solutions with our clients, which we call partners. And it's really near and dear to my heart, especially in a time like this when we're thinking about crisis communications and how difficult a time that we're facing right now. So with a lot of our clients, which we call partners, and I'll refer to as partners from now on, it's important for us to identify solutions, work closely with them, and pivot. And that's very important. We're going to talk more about that. Everything is stopped from an advertising and marketing perspective. All the trade shows stopped, and we've had to identify new ways to do business moving forward. And so we're going to talk more about that. But I wanted to share that that's our trademarked motto, and it's actually graffiti on our wall and something that we really believe in. So for those of you that don't know, we are a full service marketing and PR agency, and this is our logo, and the three facets of our logo are really important because when you pull all three of them together, agency, which is who we are, of course, our partners, which are obviously our clients, and then our community, which is the end consumer, whether you're B2B or B2C, when you pull those three pieces together, the center point is belonging. And now more than ever, we really need belonging. Since the beginning of time, we've had communities and tribes and always wanted to kind of pull together. And now that we have to be isolated and quarantined, it's even more important for us to find ways to belong. And we'll talk more about that. So just wanted to share some of the partners that we work with. As you all know, I acquired the partnership in 2018 after having my own company since 2012. And my background for over 20 years was PR. That's what I did. And I worked for marketing agencies and entities, but mostly did PR and issues and crisis management. And when I acquired the partnership, it was more of a branding strategy agency, and a lot of creative work was done. And so we pulled the two teams together to have a comprehensive full service agency. IHD has been a client now for over 25 years, and we're so proud to have them as a client. We're working with lots of healthcare systems. We've worked with the CDC in the past, FDIC, lots of government clients and healthcare, and I'm going to be focusing on some of those today in light of the topic of crisis communications and what we're currently going through. So I want to share what we're currently doing and some of the things that we've experienced over the past few weeks from a communications management perspective. So as I mentioned, we do a lot of strategy, branding, and advertising work. And we do public relations as well, but certainly haven't done a lot of crisis communications because it comes and goes. Some of you know I've done a lot of work in the dairy industry over the years and certainly have dairy clients. I think some of you might actually be on the line. And we've managed a lot of crisis work in the dairy industry and food recalls and agriculture for CPG clients. We've done work in government relations from a communications perspective and crisis communications. But I think it's fair to say that none of us have seen anything quite to this magnitude, and certainly something that's a global level. So this pandemic has touched all of us in a very personal way. And I want to focus on a couple of clients that we're currently working with during this pandemic. So we have the fortunate responsibility to work in healthcare, and we don't take that lightly. We're really proud of the work that we're doing in healthcare and the clients that we're able to support. And one of those is in Southwest Florida, NCH Healthcare System, which we've been working with for about a year, and we are their AOR. We do all of their work from a marketing and PR perspective, but we're also now leading from a crisis communications perspective. And I will tell you that I just want to say healthcare and government workers are going above and beyond in this time, and it's certainly very difficult for everyone, and we're really proud to be able to support them. So from an educational perspective, it's very important. Obviously there's a lot of misinformation, as you can imagine, especially with social media and the fake news. We're constantly hearing misinformation on social media and on the news, and so we are continuing to provide educational content and make sure that we're updating things in real time, from website to rack cards to digital materials, social media assets. We're actually doing video production and having the CEO share messaging. We've been doing a lot of media relations, and the community's really rallied, and there's a lot of support now in donations that are coming through. And so, getting that message out there frequently and fast is very important and something that we're working to do. So I love this picture because this shows the power of community. And if we can just go back to that photo, there we go. That's great. Thank you. So two CEOs of two different healthcare systems coming together to share a message of community. And this is so powerful because, and you see the elbow bump there, which I think is great because obviously we're not shaking hands these days, but it's a philanthropy campaign that we're working together to pull donations in from the community and make sure that we are supporting the healthcare system as needed with supplies and resources during this challenging time. So where are we? So what is the current landscape? So I want to share a couple of things with you. So first of all, there's a lot of information on the news and in social media, and I think that it can become overwhelming. I want to say, first of all, I empathize with your situations, whether you're isolated at home or you're not able to go into work, or maybe you're separated from family members or friends. I know it's certainly a difficult time. My dad is the demographic that they're definitely asking to stay home, and he has some health concerns. And so, we're not able to see him. And so that's been a challenging situation for me personally as well. So I certainly know all of you are going through tough times, whether it's your business or you personally with your family. So I just wanted to share that. And the current landscape it is a challenging time. The next few weeks are critical. We're being asked to stay home, and it's very important. One thing I will share with you is that the ordinance that are happening all over the country, and it's happening here in Florida as well, to stay in place, shelter in place, is for the health and safety of everyone, obviously, but also it's important to slow down the spread of the virus. And so what we're seeing is that we are going to have additional resources from a testing perspective very soon. And in fact, as early as next week and in the coming weeks, we're going to be able to test at a much more rapid rate and have a lot more tests available, which is fabulous news to everyone. But to be able to flatten the curve, it is important for everyone to stay home. And there is a lot of legislation that's come through in the past few weeks from a small business perspective I wanted to touch on briefly. So for some of you may have been following what Congress has been doing this week, and it's going to benefit small businesses. So the SBA Loan 7A, for example, is going to be something that small businesses can apply for, and it's going to offer support, making sure that we don't have to make severe layoffs, and making sure that small businesses can continue to keep their employees employed during this challenging time. I know so many people now have lost their jobs, lost work, and business has slowed. And so the federal government has stepped up. And so if you haven't been tracking that legislation, I encourage you to do so as a small business owner. And it's something that is going to be helpful for a lot of people. So look at that. There's a couple of different options. Also, as individuals, there's going to be tax incentives, and you've probably seen the media talking about the tax credits and some of the things that are happening there as well. In addition, there have been changes to FMLA, which are going to go in effect April 2nd. And so those FMLA changes are going to be around the coronavirus and how it's changed all of our lives, from the fact that schools are closed and the fact that people are getting sick, of course. So there's a lot of new legislation that's coming down the pipeline, and things that are going to impact all of us, whether it's your small business or you individually and your family. So I encourage you to continue to look at that. And if you want to reach out to me after this webinar, I can share additional resources and insights, and we'll continue to in the coming weeks. From a small business perspective, I wanted just to share briefly that there are a lot of resources. So as a small business owner, it's our responsibility to make sure we are helping our team during this difficult time. So there's a lot of resources from a mental health perspective, from a physical resource perspective. I'm sure you've seen some of the resources as far as helping parents who are also working and now having to juggle that in their homes. And there's some fabulous organizations putting out a lot of great content that we'll be sending after this webinar as well. But as a small business owner, I think it's important for us to rally together and support each other to make sure that we're providing those resources. So let's talk a little bit about crisis communications. So I know many of you have been catapulted into this and didn't perhaps see it coming, and it certainly has happened very quickly. We've actually been in crisis communications mode for 20 days now. So it's hard to believe, and this is going to be our new norm for quite some time. Every day is changing. Every day we're getting new information, and sometimes it's even by the hour. So how do you manage crisis communications as a small business owner? Well, the first thing I want to encourage is leading with empathy. And many of you have done a great job with this already. And we've been working with our partners to help them identify communications in the past few weeks. But it is important to continue doing this. People are going to have more stress as the weeks continue. As they are in quarantine, it's going to become more and more difficult, and your anxiety potentially increases, right? With so many responsibilities of juggling, family and work life, small businesses struggling during this difficult time, people worried about being sick or loved ones being sick, and family and friends, and then being isolated and not having that social interaction also adds a different layer of stress. So leading with empathy, how does that work? So every communication that you send, whether external or internal, you need to make sure that you recognize that people's anxiety levels are high, that they're under a lot of stress, and that they are concerned about their health and safety. So leading with empathy is critical in a crisis time. There is a huge gap in communications typically during a crisis. And one of the reasons that happens is because there's so much content, so much happening, so much news. And it is important for you not to let that void happen as a small business owner. And the absence of information, people make up information. And so you need to make sure that you're continuing to communicate, and it needs to be frequently. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Honest versus transparent. So there's a difference, right? And as a small business owner, it's a challenge, but certainly you want to be honest with your employees. You want to be honest with your vendors, honest with your partners and clients and anyone that you're working with in this difficult time. How much transparency do you need to have? So I think it's very important to be honest about your situation, honest about what you need, honest about what new processes are in place, or perhaps working from home policies, and being very clear about those things. But too much transparency can be a challenge during a crisis situation. And what do I mean by that? So certainly as a small business owner, there are a lot of companies who are closing, and it's a very difficult time for them. Perhaps there'll be slowing of business and cash flow challenges. And so there has to be a balance as a small business owner between being very honest with your team and being completely transparent. The last thing you want to do is create more fear. And so it's important for us to gather all the information, have all the facts, and not speculate, never speculate, and just be honest when we can. And if we don't have all the information or we don't know, it's okay to say that. It's very important to say, I don't know everything right now, but I'll gather more information and share when I can. And in this is certainly a situation where there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how long schools will be closed in some states. We're not sure when we're actually going to be in a situation where we can go back out again and we're not in quarantine. So being honest is fair and all that anyone can expect of you right now. Being quick and accurate is critical in a crisis situation. Even a decade ago when we were dealing with other crisis situations, I remember people have talked about SARS and H1N1 and other situations that we've experienced as a nation. Things did not move at the pace that they do now because of the digital day that we live in. Information travels so quickly. So it's important that we're very fast in our communication and accurate. Now is not the time to be perfect. And frankly, oftentimes we spend so much time on strategies and making sure that the creative is perfect and everything looks fantastic before we launch things, which is very important. But in a crisis situation, it's more important to make sure you don't have a communication void. You're being honest and you're being very fast with your communication. Of course, you want it to be accurate, but don't stress if you have a small typo in something, or you think, oh, I would have liked to said it this way, or wordsmithing things. Now's not the time to overthink your communication. It's the time to be honest, transparent, quick, and accurate. Communicate often. So how often? I'm getting this question a lot, and I think it's important to kind of assess the nature of your audience and make sure that you're meeting their needs. So for some organizations, that means daily. In healthcare communication right now, we are communicating multiple times a day or daily, internally and externally. That means daily press statements, daily internal communication, and ensuring that everyone knows what's happening and getting an update. It's not something that you have to do as a small business owner, but for me and my team, I'm sending multiple communications a week internally, inspirational messages, sharing resources, and I encourage small business owners to do that. Now more than ever, we need that interaction and we need that support. And I think it's important for us as leaders to communicate often with our teams and with our clients to ensure that they know they feel supported. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this today, because as much as we can to offer support in this difficult time, I think it's important. So internal versus external, you need to be doing both, and you need to be doing both at least weekly at this point, and we can certainly help you with that. And for some of you, we already have. So pivoting. So I've been talking to my team a lot about this. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, we had a Zoom conversation, and a lot of us are doing those these days. And I said to them, look, I know a lot of you know that we're a strategy, branding, and advertising agency who happens to do some PR for clients. But today we're a crisis communications PR agency, and that's what our clients need. And that's the support that they need. I'm very thankful that I have several decades of experience in this and that we were able to pivot very quickly. For some organizations and companies, this is more of a challenge. And so how do you pivot and what does that look like? We'll talk more about that. So the first thing to do is to pause. So in a crisis, sometimes people, and then you always hear stay calm and carry on, right? That's the British saying, and certainly something that is helpful, but pausing is also very helpful. And in the social media world, we talk about pause before you post, right? But in a crisis, you also need to consider pausing for a moment and thinking through what's the next best thing you can do. And as small business owners, for many of us, that's pivoting. You know, I've heard of stories in Europe and other places in the US now where they're actually pivoting to produce hand sanitizer, pivoting to produce other products. You know, we have a shortage of supplies and lots of materials in healthcare. And so the ability to pivot is critical in a crisis situation. But pause first, ensure you know which direction you need to pivot. And once you pivot, then you need to plan some more for the future and what that looks like. And we'll talk more about that. So, you know, I talked to my team a little bit about this week, and, you know, we all are staying home and we are remaining isolated in quarantine for the health and safety of our nation and our world. And now more than ever, we need to be social. And now's not the time for us to retreat in. It's the time for us to extend out and reach out to others. There's so many people that are lonely, that are anxious, that are afraid. And a crisis situation, it's escalated and everything's moving so fast. And again, I encourage you to pause and reach out. So reach out to your teams, reach out to your vendors, reach out to your partners. And phone calls, you know, more than just an email or text message goes such a long way. We need to be social, and we need to think about social distancing in a different way. It's not social distancing, it's physical distancing, right? We're physically distancing ourselves for our health and well-being. But socially, we need those interactions. We need that belonging. So we have to continue to think about what the future looks like. And while it's uncertain and we don't have a timeline on this, we need to think and reflect on what we've done the past few weeks, how we've adapted, how we've pivoted, and what our next steps are. And that's where the strategy comes into play. And we can certainly assist with that. And we've already been working with some of our partners on this. You know, what does this look like? So many trade shows and events and all kinds of activities have been canceled. And so being able to pivot, whether that's transitioning that to a digital play, whether that means postponing something or canceling it, what is the strategy around all of that? And how are you going to position your organization or your company moving forward? So think some more and then act. You know, sometimes in a crisis situation, people become paralyzed. And I've actually talked to a few of you about the paralyzation that you can experience. People become paralyzed and aren't sure how to move forward because they're in a situation that they've not been in before. And certainly no one's seen anything to this magnitude or scale before. So acting is important. And it's important that we encourage our leaders and our team members and anyone that we're working with to think and strategize and then act. And you have to act quickly in a crisis situation. And then I joke with my team and I say, think some more. But truly, in these times, we have to constantly be thinking about what our next step is and how we're going to be able to pause, pivot, and plan and play that out moving forward. So we're all in our quarantine bubbles, and I hope everyone is safe and well and able to be busy and productive. These quarantine bubbles, though, are again very isolating. And so in a crisis situation like this, it's so important for us to try to connect our quarantine bubbles so that we can move in the right direction together. And I shared with my team recently that while you're in quarantine is not the time to stop everything. It's the time to plan and take this time to make sure that we are ready once we come out of our quarantine bubbles to move very quickly. So in a crisis situation, you obviously want to be confident. And as leaders in small business organizations, I know you are, and obviously incredibly competent entrepreneurs and small business owners are the backbone of this country and 50% of employment, as we've learned in the past few weeks and heard so much on the media. But being compassionate and leading with empathy is critical in a crisis situation. I think these 3 C's are what's going to help you move forward and be able to act and not be paralyzed. So the way we do business is going to change. It has already changed. And I've seen so many articles and so much content about the fact that this has really pushed all of us, of course, into working in a different way. The idea that we can't have face-to-face meetings, that we're not able to physically be together. And in a crisis communication situation, it's even more challenging because you're having to communicate extremely accurately, and be honest and frequently. And that's why you have to over communicate in a crisis situation, and especially in a situation like this, where you can't have that face-to-face interaction. So this could potentially change the way we do business for decades. And I think it's important to consider when you're thinking about Q3 and Q4 and even into your plans in 2021, that things probably won't be the same. We have defining moments in history. 9/11 was one of those. We've had so many over the course of decades, and this is one of those moments. And so how we respond, how we react, and how we plan for the future is going to define us and our organizations. Okay, so what next? So I love this saying, and actually a good friend of mine, Jack English, says it quite frequently. Okay, so what next? The idea is that we have to reevaluate everything. We need to look at our business goals. We need to look at our strategy for the future. Obviously, your marketing plans have shifted and changed and perhaps paused. And now's the time to review and reevaluate what things look like in the future. If your plans have been pushed, and likely they have, or been put on pause or canceled, lean on digital. And I would say that your digital strategy now is more important than ever. One of the tips that we want to share is that don't be on autopilot. So for so many organizations and companies, and you've probably already seen this happen, they have content scheduled out. They have emails, they have social, they have advertising, and perhaps you've even seen some ads in social that's just not appropriate during this time. People are scared, they're afraid. We have people who are sick, people who are unfortunately passing away, and it's just really a scary time for our nation and not the appropriate time to be on autopilot. Every piece of content that goes out must be reviewed. Every social post, every advertisement, every communication, every email, everything. So I think it's important to lean on digital, but do it in the right way and ensure that you're not on autopilot. It's not the time probably to be doing a lot of additional advertising, perhaps depending on your business and what you're obviously promoting. But if you do so and you continue to advertise and promote, certainly lead with empathy and make sure that you have the message right. Plan now for work after this virus. This pandemic will come to an end and we will get through this as a country and all of our communities. But it is important to not just be on pause. It's important for us to consider what's next. And so I'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but I've heard quite a few organizations already taking this time to think through their plans for the rest of the year, post virus. And so let's not become paralyzed. Let's not pause everything. Let's think about how we can take this time to plan. And we got to be ready. We have to be ready to go as soon as we feel it's appropriate. And once the economy starts to recover, we have to make up that lost revenue. And I know so many of you are struggling right now, and it's going to be very important that we can run really fast when we're able to make up that lost revenue. So just wanted to share our services. I've mentioned we're a full service marketing and PR agency. We do everything from website design and development, SEO, advertising, and obviously crisis communications. And we're here to support you. So this is a picture of our office. When everyone used to be able to go to the office, we actually look into the Brave Stadium, which is a lot of fun. We're at the Battery. And we truly believe in that partnership over presentation philosophy. We're not like your traditional agency in that we don't believe in just kind of doing the billable hours. We want to build a partnership for decades to come, and that's how we operate. So for some of you who've worked with us in the past, you've probably seen this and you know that this is our process when we first start working with a new partner in the onboarding. Ready, set, go. So oftentimes many companies go before they're ready and set, and it costs them a lot more time and money. Now, though, it's interesting because, we were able to run so fast previously, right? Everybody was running really quickly and incredibly busy. And now that things have slowed down dramatically is the perfect time to make sure you are ready and set. Now is the time to strategize, plan, pivot, and look forward to making sure that you have all your plans in place. We have one particular partner that we're working with, and it's actually a city. And we're working on a marketing campaign for them. And we talked recently about the fact that it's important for them to have all of the work ready to go when they can start marketing. So all the campaign work is done, it's buttoned up, everything's in place. All we have to do is go live. So now's the time to make sure you're ready and set so we can go really quickly when we come out on the other side. So I think we have 5 minutes, and I do believe we're going to open it up for questions. I just want to say, I'm actually coming to you live from Florida. I've been on the ground and on the front lines for weeks now, and I've been talking to so many of our partners who are in challenging times. And I just want to say that heartfelt thanks for joining today. I hope you got something out of this webinar, and I'm really appreciative of your time. And we're all in this together. It's a difficult situation, a difficult time, and anything we can do to help support you, we certainly want to do. I'll open up for any questions. I love hearing the music in the background.
Thank you, Amanda, for everything. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. It's good to hear from you.
I especially like, Amanda, this is Marcy. Hi. I especially like your ready, set, go. I mean, this is the time to be really focused on so that you're ready to go later. I like that. Good tip.
And individually, if you want to reach out to me or answer any questions privately too, I'll share that, we do work with a lot of government entities and healthcare entities. And so we are certainly getting information first. So if there's any certain conversations you want to have individually, I'm happy to have those too. So just reach out. If you have my personal contact information, you can certainly do that. And my email, there, I will get there, connect@thepartnership.com or amanda@thepartnership.com too. Any other questions? I just want to say thanks again. Hope everyone stays safe and well, and enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you'll get some sunshine wherever you are. Thank you.